I felt when I made The French Connection and The Exorcist that I had a real grasp on public taste. Public taste was my taste. I rode the subways, I lived, you know, very simply, and I was the audience. And I think that's the best way for an American film director to be working, to be completely in sync with your audience, because we don't make these films to hang in the Louvre. We make them to be seen by as many people as possible.
What's happening? Stop! It's burning! There's something, Doctor. Please help her.
Mother! Make it stop! He's trying to kill me! Mother! Make it
All right, let's see what keep away! The sour is mine!
Billy delves into areas that not too many filmmakers are pleased or even comfortable about dealing with, you know, whether it's in a film like Cruising, whether it's Sorcerer. He's an intimidating fellow. He's an intimidating fellow. He has a mercurial charm and a mercurial danger and a mercurial sense of humor about him, and it's intimidating, but it's also, under the right circumstances, can be very endearing, very, very powerful in a sense of what you will learn as an actor.
There's 4 or 5 of the great directors left, and Billy's certainly one of those. I mean, I'm almost back to zero here, because I believe he's taking us all to school, and, you know, and this is the big leagues because of him and the tone that he sets and his take on things.
As I was growing up in Chicago, I had no particular interest in film. I mean, I used to go to the movies. Like other kids, I'd go see movies, which largely consisted of Hopalong Cassidy westerns and Dick Tracy and The Phantom and serials. They'd run a whole bunch of things like that at a theater every Saturday. And for many years, through all my formative years, I'd say, I just was entertained by films. I never had any idea that I would ever be making them. I originally was hoping that I would one day become a professional basketball player. And one day, when I was about 17 or 18, I went to see a film called Citizen Kane. And when I came out of the theater, I was dazzled. I was in another world. I was transported. And I had never had an experience like that in any of the movies that I had seen. And a day or so later, the idea formed in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. I've seen that film now maybe 200 times. It's the only education I ever had in filmmaking. I never went to a film school. I never had a lesson in either acting or the camera or any of the techniques. I just sort of picked it up by osmosis.
William Friedkin has directed 17 feature films, all of which have touched audiences in one way or another. Friedkin has never been one to shy away from controversial subject matter, as evidenced by such films as The French Connection, The Exorcist, Sorcerer, and Cruising. He began his career in the mailroom at WGN Television in Chicago, eventually working his way up to directing documentaries and live television programs. Producer David Wolper noticed young Friedkin's work and brought him to Hollywood to direct a series of documentaries that included The Thin Blue Line, Mayhem on Sunday Afternoon, and The Bold Men. Friedkin's first feature film, Good Times, marked the screen debuts of Sonny and Cher.
One of the documentaries was seen by Sonny Bono of Sonny and Cher. And when he had an opportunity to make a feature film with Cher, he wanted to get a young director to do his film. He wanted someone that he felt compatible with, And so he said to his producer, Steve Broidy, this is the guy I want to direct my feature film. And we literally were making it like guerrilla filmmaking. We had no permission. We went out, we snuck on the Paramount lot where they had the Bonanza Western Street. We drove in with Sonny and Cher on a Saturday when they weren't filming. We waved at the guard at the gate and said, hi, it's Sonny and Cher. We're coming down here to... The guard said, oh, go right ahead. We'd go out and start shooting on the Western Street. There was no script. We went with whatever ideas we had. Sonny would get an idea, I'd get an idea, we'd film it, figure out how to put it together later. It surprisingly got good reviews. It got very good reviews, and a number of people in the film industry saw it, including Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin, who hired me to do my next feature, The Night They Raided Minsky's, as a result of having seen Good Times, which I'm telling you now is not viewable.
A good director requires many qualities. He's got to be a psychiatrist with his actors. He's got to be a technician with his cameraman. He's got to be have the eye of an interior decorator for the sets. There are many things he requires. But the one dominant characteristic that a good director should have is ability to tell a story. He's got to be a storyteller in the tradition of the old minstrels, in the tradition of the guys who stand to this day in front of an audience and capture their attention by telling stories. He's got to be a storyteller, and Billy is that.
Friedkin's second feature film was the 1968 production of The Night They Raided Minsky's, starring Jason Robards, Forrest Tucker, Rudy Valley, Harry Andrews, Burt Lahr, Elliot Gould, and Britt Eklund. The first cut of the movie was disastrous, and Friedkin considered his work on the film a major failure.
I had a rough time doing that one. It was a struggle, and I really didn't know enough to direct a feature film then. I was faking it, to tell you the truth. I mean, every day on the set, I was just improvising. You can't go out and do a big budget feature and do that. When it came out, you know, I thought, again, I had no future. I thought I'd never get to direct another feature.
Hey, you, wait. That Bible dance you do, how does it go?
Oh, very well, thank you.
I mean, what do you do?
I do Eve, the Garden of Eden.
Oh, no belly work in it, is there?
Belly work?
I didn't think so. Props?
An apple and a snake.
That's a good, simple question. Music?
Oh, the Baccarol from Tales of Hoffmann by Offenbach.
Made in heaven, don't go away.
Oh, wait once. Why should I not go away?
Because tonight at the midnight show, you're dancing.
I'm dancing. Oh, my God.
Friedkin's next film was the 1968 production of The Birthday Party, starring Robert Shaw and Patrick McGee, followed in 1970 by the controversial stage play The Boys in the Band, which starred Leonard Fry, Cliff Gorman, and Lawrence Luckinbill. After the release of these two movies, Friedkin was thought of as a director of art films.
The next film I did was The Birthday Party, from a play by Harold Pinter. I probably learned more from that experience than anything I've ever done, learning about how the mind of this great writer worked. And he taught me a lot just by his friendship and by osmosis. And we made this film, which got some very good reviews, but again was almost sunk without a trace, and is not widely seen today. With Boys in the Band, Mart Crowley, who wrote that play, had seen both The Night They Raided Minsky's, and he saw The Birthday Party, which was a film of a play. So I gladly agreed to do the film of it with the original cast. After it had come out, to my great surprise, there were a handful of protests from members of the gay community about Boys in the Band who thought that it was stereotyping gay people. And I never thought that it was, and I was dumbfounded at that response. I can understand now what they were referring to, although it was never Mart Crowley's intention to stereotype people. He wrote from his own experience about people that he knew. And if they happened to be stereotypes, well, that was too bad. And I thought of them as really interesting, unique individuals. But the film became controversial for a number of reasons. It was the first mainstream film that purported to be about gay life in America.
1971 marked the year that Friedkin would set the cinematic world on its ear with the production of the now classic The French Connection, starring Gene Hackman, Roy Scheider, Fernando Rey, and Tony LoBianco. The film received Academy Awards for Gene Hackman as Best Actor, Friedkin for Best Director, and for Best Editing and Best Picture of 1971, as well as numerous other awards.
For about a year or so, we couldn't get anyone to make the film. No studio wanted to make The French Connection. And finally, Dick Zanuck at 20th Century Fox said to us, look, he said, I've got $1.5 million hidden away in a drawer over here. If you guys can make this film for $1.5 million, go ahead and make it. I didn't set out to make a documentary, but having made documentary films, I wanted to make The French Connection with documentary technique, handheld cameras. That became the technique for the film. It looked what we call kind of grab-ass, it's grab-ass technique or improvisational. And then I sent Hackman and Roy Scheider out to hang around with their counterparts, Egan and Grasso, and they hung around with them for about a month or so, and they'd come back with stories and dialogue, and they would improvise them right into the picture.
We got the information there's no shit on the street, right? It's like a goddamn desert full of junkies out there. Everybody waiting to get well.
But this could be it. This little candy store guy, he's put on a big show in a fancy nightclub with no narcotics connections. They were all over him. And then on our own, after working a whole day and night, we tailed him to Brooklyn. And we sat on him for practically a week. Now, who do we come up with? Joe Weinstock, for Christ's sake. Now, you gotta let us have it.
Do you believe all this crap?
I go with my partner.
What'll it take?
A wire.
No, 2 wires.
2 wires.
One on the store, one on the house.
You know I have to get a court order for wiretap, don't you?
But you'll try.
We know you can do it, Walt.
Nobody does a car chase like Billy. Billy was the first one to do the big car chase in a movie, which was The French Connection.
We didn't have a chase in it. It was one of those lines in a script that says, the chase begins here. And then it came down to how to do it. I never storyboarded it. I never drew one picture of anything happening. I simply went out to the locations and I improvised from shot to shot. It occurred to me that of the best chases I'd ever seen on film, among which Bullet is one, the one thing that I could do that was different was involve innocent bystanders. The most dangerous looking sequence of the chase is where Hackman's car narrowly misses a woman with a baby carriage. That was the easiest sequence to shoot, but it looks like the most dangerous. It's where most people go like this, and yet it was shot simply by having one shot. Gene Hackman was in a stationary car at that point. His car wasn't moving. I had the camera zoom in on Gene as though Gene were moving very fast. The illusion of a camera zooming to a person can look like the person's moving toward the camera. So I shot the camera zooming toward Gene, and then I turned around and made a shot of the woman crossing the street with a baby carriage, and at a certain point she was to turn and look at the camera. At a certain point, turn, look, and scream, and at that moment her camera would zoom into her. So in each case it was a zoom to Hackman, his reaction, followed by the woman walking. She hit a mark on the street, turns, we zoom into her face, she screams. The 2 shots together combined with the sound make an effective near miss. When we came to the last day of filming the chase, I realized that we didn't have enough speed on the screen, and I went to the stuntman, and this was a technique I used to use to goad actors sometimes, but I said to Bill, Bill, we've been filming on this chase for 8 weeks, and we don't have enough speed or enough danger, and I said, and I really don't think that it's going to work. He said, are you willing to get in the car with me? I'll show you some speed. And Bill Hickman drove that car at about 90 miles an hour, 80 to 90 miles an hour for 26 city blocks with no control. Everything you see in The French Connection, all those pieces of those cars coming up and narrowly missing, those are not stunt cars. There's not one other stunt car in that sequence. All the cars that pass by, that near miss, was done over one long take of a 26-block run with a gumball on top of Bill Hickman's car, just a siren that we put on to warn people to get out of our way. To make a film like that, you have to get in a zone where that's all you think about and that's all you care about. You become obsessed with the material. And once you're obsessed with the material, other factors start to fall away, and then it takes people like assistant directors and stunt coordinators and people like that to hold you back in, because when you get in that zone, you're ready to say anything's going to happen. And on The French Connection, I virtually had total control of New York. I mean, we're going to shoot a chase going right through here. Well, does anybody know about it? No. Okay, fine, let's go. Since then, there have been a lot more stringent rules put together where cities don't allow you to do this without permission, and great discomfort to the citizenry.
As if The French Connection were not enough to secure Friedkin's future as a first-class director, his next film would. In 1973, Friedkin brought to the screen Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, a truly terrifying story of a young girl possessed by a malevolent spirit. Oscars were awarded for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound, as well as 8 other nominations, including Friedkin for Best Director.
Can you help an old altar boy, Father?
Your mother's in here with his cars. Would you like to leave a message? I'll see that she gets it.
If that's true, then you must know my mother's maiden name. What is it? What is it?
Bill Blatty was a fellow I knew for many years before he wrote The Exorcist. Just I knew him socially. And one day I was on a tour, actually, for The French Connection. I was on a promotion tour, and this manuscript arrived. And I opened it, and I read the first page, and I was hooked, like a fish out of water. I read the whole book that night in one sitting, and I was absolutely terrified by it. And then what happened was that Bill presented me with a script. Now he's really gone to the mat to get me to direct the film. He says, I have a surprise for you. And he handed me a script that he had written. And I read it, and I thought it was terrible. I said, Bill, you are your own worst enemy. Nobody would do this, what you've done to this great novel with this script. And Bill was a little taken aback by that, but we then sat down and reworked the script. Bill rewrote his script. I said, Bill, I want to go right back to the novel. I want to literally do the novel. I don't want any outside stuff brought in. I want to do the novel from beginning to end. It's a straight-ahead story with no flashbacks. And he went back and wrote another script over a matter of several months. And that's the script that we shot. It's a brilliant script, as it was a great novel, and that's how I got into it. I personally saw probably 100 girls, age 10 to 13. Then I meet Linda, and I said, do you know what the story of The Exorcist is? She said, yeah. I said, well, tell me about it. What is it? And she said, well, it's about a little girl who gets possessed by the devil, and she does a lot of bad things. And I said, well, what sort of bad things? She says, oh, well, she pushes a man out a window, and she hits her mother, and she masturbates with a crucifix. I said, what? She said, she masturbates with a crucifix. I said, do you know what that means? She said, masturbate? I said, yeah. She said, oh, that's like jerking off, isn't it? And I said, yeah. I said, have you ever done that? And she said, sure, haven't you? And at that moment, I knew that I had Reagan for The Exorcist.
Are you comfortable, Reagan?
Yes,
How old are you?
12.
Is there someone inside you?
Sometimes.
Who is it?
I don't know.
Is it Captain Howdy?
I don't know.
If I ask him to tell me, will you let him answer?
No.
Why not?
I'm afraid.
If he talks to me, I think he'll leave you. Do you want him to leave you?
Yes.
Again, it was the god of movies that smiled on that film. Ellen Burstyn, who had really not had the lead in a major picture before that. Jason Miller, who had never done a picture. Linda Blair, who had never been in a movie. The god of movies smiled on us, and that's the only way I can put it. All the special effects at that time were experimental. I mean, they hadn't really been done. And they were all done mechanically. None of the effects are done optically. There are no opticals in The Exorcist. If the bed goes off the floor, you see it go off the floor. When the little girl rises off the bed, we had to bring her off the bed literally by means of a rather simple set of mechanisms.
It's the power of Christ.
Well, the shot I'm most asked about is how did we make the little girl's head turn 360 degrees? The makeup artist, Dick Smith, built an absolute replica of Linda Blair's face that we put on a dummy that was operated on a stick below the dummy's body so that he could just be below frame turning a stick that would turn her head. So we had Linda Blair's head, she's in a big close-up, and she turns this far in a shot, and the rest of it is done by a dummy's head turning completely around that was a total replica of her face, made by the great makeup artist Dick Smith, who did all of Linda's makeup.
By this sign of the Holy Cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!
Amen.
There are many stories about The Exorcist. There's all the stories about the things that went wrong, and they were legion, actually. One day at 5 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from the production manager at home. I'm at home sleeping. He said, "Don't bother to come to work today." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, the set burned to the ground." We built a 3-story house on a stage, and for some reason the house, no one knows why, the whole set burned to the ground. There was a guard sitting outside. He never saw a fire develop. The theory later was that because it was an old stage, there were pigeons flying around, and supposedly pigeons flew into a light box and short-circuited some electricity and caused a fire, but who knows. But there were all sorts of things like that went wrong from time to time. And every time something would go wrong, I'd have a priest come in and bless the set and literally exorcise the set. And then for a while, things would go fine again. And a week or 2 weeks, and then some other catastrophe take place. And we'd bless the set again, and then we'd be okay for a while. Any number of things like that happened, from the grotesque to, the near fatal. I must say, I feel that that's the one film that I've worked on that I think, is something of a classic. But again, because of the story and the way the actors brought it to life. What makes a classic, a great story, timeless, and wonderfully performed, and that's what The Exorcist has.
In 1977, Friedkin attempted a new version of the French film Wages of Fear. The film starred Roy Scheider, Amadou, Bruno Kramer, Francisco Rabal, and Joe Spinell, and was released under the title Sorcerer. It drew mixed reviews and poor audience response. Yet, Sorcerer remains a tribute to Friedkin's unique and exciting skills as a filmmaker.
And when Sorcerer came out with an international cast, and it's an incredible masterwork of a film, but nonetheless, it was assailed. It was assailed by critics. It was a financial disaster, if you will, at the box office, to such an extent that people now regarded Billy as perhaps an irresponsible enfant terrible, as opposed to the great director who had directed The Exorcist or The French Connection, and it was devastating for him. Billy probably wouldn't be somebody who would wear that on his sleeve, because he would kind of maybe cockily shrug it off about, you know, just one of those things. But in his heart of hearts, he was hurt. He was hurt because he had really put his life as an artist on the line in doing Sorcerer.
I decided to make an adaptation of H.G. Clouseau's Wages of Fear in an entirely new version that would only draw on the theme but with new characters. And in many ways, I think it comes as close as any film I've made to fulfilling my intentions for it. It's probably the one film of mine I can still watch.
We're carrying 3 cases each. 1 is enough to blow your fire. 6 cases will blow out the whole field. That means you don't think all the trucks will make it. One of us is a backup.
We want double and legal residence, or we don't drive.
You leave in 4 hours.
The bridge sequence in The Sorcerer is very much like the chase in French Connection, 1 shot at a time. Only in this case, some of it was dangerous. We had to build a suspension bridge. We originally were going to build it in the Dominican Republic over a raging river. And it was a river that had not, the memory of man runneth not to the contrary. The river had not varied by as much as a foot in the dry season. While we go there, we build this bridge at a cost of about $1 million to build this suspension bridge, which was hydraulically controlled so that we can control the movement of the trucks on this. What looked to be like a wooden bridge was concealing hydraulics. We built this bridge, and we watch, and every day we're watching the river a little more. It's going down, 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 receding. Finally, the river receded to about 1 foot from a height of, when we went to it, of 12 feet. We couldn't shoot there. We had to tear the bridge down and find another location where the memory of man runneth not to the contrary. The water level had not receded so much as 6 inches, time immemorial. And we found this river in Tuxtepec, Mexico, and took our bridge and rebuilt it there at a cost of $1 million. And sure enough, the water receded by the time we were ready, and the water level went down to about 1.5 feet above the ground. And so we could no longer put this off. It was ridiculous. So we had to manufacture a rainstorm and hide the camera at certain angles so you didn't know how high the river was. And we literally had to reroute the river current and invent a current so that things would be racing down that 1.5 foot river. And it took about 3 months to film, just that one sequence, 1 shot at a time. Many times when you see the truck seesawing on the bridge, we actually dumped the truck accidentally. The truck went over into the water with the actors in it, stuntmen. We had to fish it up out of the water, set it up again, and do it again, and you see the seesawing movement of the trucks. It's the most difficult sequence I've ever filmed, perhaps one of the most difficult sequences ever filmed. We shot in Israel. We were doing a terrorist attack right across the street from the mayor of Jerusalem's office. We set off a bomb right across the street from the mayor of Jerusalem's office in a country where a lot of bombs went off for real. And we set this bomb off and actually shattered the windows of Teddy Kollek's office. He was the mayor of Jerusalem. And the brigades came out, and people knew we were filming, but it was so real. And what happened was another actual terrorist attack took place 2 blocks away while we were filming ours. So I pulled the crew away from where we were filming, and we went down and shot the aftermath of an actual terrorist bombing in Jerusalem that coincided with the one I had staged. And so there's a little bit of both of them in that sequence. It had taken a great deal out of me and everyone else who worked on the film, and it was extremely difficult to shoot, and it's the most disappointing thing that's ever happened to me that the film was not a success. I thought after it was finished that of all the, I had finally made a film that really worked for me, and I was very pleased with it, and it was really a failure. You'd have to say it was both a critical and a commercial failure, and it hurt me very deeply. It was a deep wound from which I may have only recovered recently. It becomes like losing a person close to you or a child. When you work that hard on a film and then you think you've achieved something beautiful, and the critics and the public tell you it doesn't work for them, that's the toughest part of directing. The actual work itself is a joy. It's enjoyable, every part of the process. When they don't work, it hits very hard. I felt when I made The French Connection and The Exorcist that I had a real grasp on public taste. Public taste was my taste. I rode the subways. I lived, very simply, and I was the audience. And I think that's the best way for an American film director to be working, to be completely in sync with your audience, because we don't make these films to hang in the Louvre. We make them to be seen by as many people as possible. And when the film is not seen and doesn't have a good release, it's disappointing. And in my case, I felt I had lost the magic touch, or that it had just eluded me. I don't know whether I ever really had it, but I felt that I had it and lost it.
The Brinks Job, based on actual events, was brought to the screen by Friedkin in 1978. The film starred Peter Falk, Alan Garfield, Peter Boyle, Warren Oates, Jenna Rollins, Paul Sorvino, and Sheldon Leonard.
The Brinks robbery was always something that I was interested in as a child. And I wanted to, I was always fascinated by these real-life Robin Hoods who robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. I mean, they robbed the Brinks Company, which was a pushover, and they gave the money to friends and relatives to open little garages and grocery stores and gas stations, and it was the thin line between the policeman and the criminal that was sort of my theme, It's true of French Connection and Sorcerer to some extent, and the Brinks Job as well, but it was that thin line between what makes a decent guy and what makes a hardened criminal. We went and filmed in the actual place where the robbery had taken place. And I had the Brinks robbers as technical consultants. So they told me everything about how they did it.
All right, boys, get them on the air.
Come on, get them up. Now get over here and open this thing.
Put them in the air and do what you're told. No one will get hurt. Now get over there and open that gate.
Open the door.
On the floor. Lift your head up.
Billy knew what he wanted, and he was firm in waiting until he got it. As far as his relationship with the actors is concerned, it depended on who the actor was. It's a person-to-person thing. But technically, he was very innovative, and he was one of the first people to use the Steadicam, to use a camera that could follow you from room to room and go around corners and without laying miles and miles of dolly track. And he used it very effectively. And I, as a fellow director, found myself learning a great deal from his technique.
Just what exactly does the statute say?
Well, Mr. Director, it seems the Bureau has no real jurisdiction. No federal money was involved as far as we can tell.
How about the Coast Guard, National Parks, Forest Service?
One bag apparently contained checks from the Veterans Administration.
That should bring us in.
Well, the statute requires that the theft be of cash, not less than $100 in order to come under our jurisdiction.
And for Christ's sake, less than $100 in cash, and let's get on with it.
Peter Falk was the only actor I ever thought about to play Tony Pino. Peter has a great range from comedy to drama. He can break your heart or he can make you laugh. He was on the nose casting for that role and wonderful.
It is, moreover, the supreme headquarters of a privately owned armored force that operates throughout the United States and Canada. Behind its 27-inch walls are iron-barred vaults and arsenals of machine guns, carbines, and assorted small arms. What a load of shit.
Billy would tease me affectionately in the rushes because he thought my performance in The Brinks Job was a definite shoo-in for a supporting actor award. And he would embarrass me in the rushes when we'd be watching the dailies. He would say, "The envelope, please."
Alan's a very skilled actor. I saw him do a film years ago that was almost semi-pornographic. It was called Cry Uncle, and it's pure genius. I'd always wanted to work with Alan, and you know, he just convinced me that his very comic presence would work. But Vinnie Costa objected to it. He said, because Alan at that time was huge, he was fat, and Vinnie Costa didn't want to be portrayed as a buffoon. And a buffoon is what I wanted, and Alan Garfield was perfect.
Be there, baby.
Right! Outside! This is my score, Tony! Outside! Boom! Boom! Horse's egg! My score, Tony Red! Get out!
One day, an old fellow would go up to where Peter had his trailer, and we had a fellow guarding the trailer named Mike Torella, a neighborhood guy, and this old gentleman came up and he had some lasagna, some homemade lasagna, and he said, Mikey, he said, hey, my wife will make lasagna for Mr. Colombo. You give him Mr. Colombo? And Mikey said, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him, Joey. Don't worry about it. I'll give it to him. And this fella came around 5 or 6 times, and finally we're about to wrap and leave, and Mikey got Peter to sign a picture to this gentleman. The gentleman gets the picture. He says, goes up to Mikey. He says, Mikey, Mr. Colombo see me now? And Mikey said, well, Joe, you know, he had to leave, but he said he wanted you to have this autographed picture. And he gives him the picture, and it says, to Joey, with all my best wishes, from Peter Falk. And the old gentleman looked at this. He said, Peter Falk. He said, Peter Falk. He said, who's it at? Mikey said, well, that's Colombo. That's his real name. He said, is the name not Colombo? He said, no. He says, is it not Italian? He said, no. The guy ripped the picture up and threw it back.
Once again, Friedkin tackles a highly controversial subject in his 1980 production of Cruising, starring Al Pacino, Karen Allen, and Paul Sorvino, and produced by Jerry Weintraub. The release of the film was sensationalized, with many gay rights groups voicing loud disapproval of the sordid gay characterizations. Yet Friedkin insists he only filmed the reality of what he found in the gay leather bars of New York's West Village.
When the picture first opened, it was very, very controversial. The gay community was very much against this film. and for all the wrong reasons as far as I'm concerned and as far as I was concerned at the time. So we went through a very interesting time with cruising, and I always felt that it was a great movie and that it would find its place in history, and I believe that it will.
At one time, Steven Spielberg was preparing to make Cruising with Phil D'Antoni, but they could never get a script they liked, and they abandoned it. And then Jerry Weintraub got it because he wanted to work with me, and he heard at one time I was interested in it. So he got it, and he brought it back to me. And there was a series of cautionary articles by a fellow named Arthur Bell, who is now dead, about the violence in the leather bars. And I said to Jerry, if we can make a film about that, take Gerald Walker's premise, the guy who wrote the novel Cruising, and put this character into the leather bars, this cop, undercover, that's something I'd be interested in doing. Originally, there were a number of other actors who wanted to play it. Then Al was shown the script, which I wrote. I wrote the script of Cruising, and Al loved the script, and he wanted to become a part of it, and so that cleared the decks of everyone else, and we went with Al. He wasn't attached originally. Came on board after the film was ready to go.
Paul Vincent was a professor at Columbia University. Lauren Lucas was an actor.
Oh, the St. James Hotel stabbing. I read about that.
How'd you like to disappear?
Disappear?
Go undercover. These killings have a similar MO, but we've also been finding parts of bodies floating in the river. We don't know a damn thing about these torso victims. We don't even know who the hell they are yet. But it's my hunch that they were done by the same guy who did these 2 killings up here.
So why me?
Well, frankly, all of the victims appear to be the same physical type, which is to say, they all look like you. Late 20s, 140, 150 pounds, dark hair, dark eyes.
I see.
I want to send you out there to see if you can attract this guy.
And we got permission through various contacts that Jerry and I had to go into the leather bars and to observe firsthand what went on. And it was, for me, it was like going into Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, I had never seen so much group sex with no limit, no holds barred. And in some of the most incredible situations, unimaginable situations. And that's the beginning of a film. That's what interests. This situation, this scene, is something that I think the general audience doesn't know a lot about and would be fascinated by, as I am. And so I then set out to make the film in those leather bars with many of those same people doing what they do.
Where you going, friend? What do you mean?
Got a knife, gun, anything at all? Why? What's wrong? You police officer. Wow. This is Precinct 9. You got the wrong attitude. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I think, you know, if you're a good director is passionate about trying to bring a story about honestly, and he is incredibly passionate. He also doesn't like a lull to come down. Sometimes when you're working day in and day out, it gets to be like, okay, when's the next shot, you know? And he doesn't let that happen. He will raise his voice every once in a while, just get everybody's attention.
In 1983, Friedkin directed Sale of the Century, starring Chevy Chase, Gregory Hines, and Sigourney Weaver, before directing the highly charged To Live and Let Die in L.A., which featured William Peterson and Willem Dafoe. The film was a fast-paced, morally ambivalent tale of cops and counterfeiters in L.A.
Right there, fella! I'm ready to die!
Nobody's gonna die. Look, you and I are gonna go downstairs and talk.
Death to Israel and America and all the enemies of Islam!
I understand. Look, I'm gonna put my gun away. All right? We're gonna go talk. I am a martyr. I will burn myself on you and all the enemies of Islam. Allahu Akbar!
The idea that a Secret Service agent could one day be in a room with the President of the United States, very informally, playing poker with the President, chatting him up, talking to him, ostensibly there to protect him, and the next day he could be assigned to a detail where he has to chase a guy in a very bad neighborhood for a $50 forged credit card. And so the tremendous swings in the life of a Secret Service agent was what interested me to do that film. I wrote the screenplay from Jerry Pedovich's novel, and I took quite a few liberties with it, put in another chase scene because I enjoy doing chase scenes. You know, they're something of a challenge. Jerry didn't have one in the book. A lot of people have told me, you know, that they like that chase scene. I don't, frankly, think it's as good as the one in The French Connection. It's hard to go back and do them again. This one was a lot easier to shoot because it was all, it all took place on a freeway. And the city of Los Angeles gave me, they just dedicated a freeway for our use, you know, over in Long Beach. And we shot it every Saturday and Sunday. They closed that freeway from, you know, 7 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon and let us shoot our chase. So everything was confined to that one area, which made it a lot less challenging, frankly. I think we came up with a few new wrinkles that I now see in almost every chase scene that's been done since, which is going the wrong way on a freeway, going against traffic. That was something that was new, that we invented for that picture. But as I say, the chase scene, it's very difficult right now to think up something new. I have one in my new picture, Jade, and it's about as contemporary as I can get with a chase because so much has been done since Bullitt and The French Connection with high technology, with more money, more body count, that it's very difficult now to do a chase scene that an audience feels they haven't seen before.
In 1986, Friedkin directed the television drama Cat Squad, followed by the theatrical release of Rampage, starring Michael Biehn, Alex MacArthur, Nicholas Campbell, and Deborah Van Valkenburg. He then followed up with a television sequel to Cat Squad titled Cat Squad Python Wolf in 1988. His next feature film, The Guardian, was released in 1990 and featured Jenny Seagrove, Dwyer Brown, and Carrie Lowell. His successful production of the theatrical feature Blue Chips, starring Nick Nolte, came in 1994 and was based on the character of Indiana basketball coach Bobby Knight. The film was bolstered by exciting game footage shot during real games.
Nick Nolte was my first and only choice to play that part. I felt that he embodied the very nature of a tough, hard-as-nails coach. I loved working with him. It was a great experience. I primarily did the film because of my love for basketball. But Nolte, working with Nick was a fantastic experience and a great challenge. But we agreed early on that we were going to try and portray a character who we both knew, who was based on Bobby Knight, the coach at Indiana, who was not going to be all that sympathetic to the audience. It was going to be a difficult hurdle for the audience to like this guy. And we knew that, and we relished that challenge.
This is by far the worst team that has ever sat in this locker room. You son of a bitches! You don't deserve a locker room. You don't deserve a locker room the way you're playing this year. You should be playing without uniforms. You should be playing with jock straps. God damn it. Every time we get ready to play, I just want to throw up. I'm goddamn sick of watching you guys play. There's not one of you that's learned how to win. We got hammered the last 4 games, and it stops right now. If you keep playing the way you're playing, we're going to get our ass beat again tonight. So depressed, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm through fighting, you sons of bitches! You're the dumbest team I ever coached. You guys think of something.
One of the things that I've always felt about sports films is there have been some very good ones, but they usually fall apart for the real sports fan when it comes to depicting the sport. You know, it doesn't look like they're really playing. It doesn't look like they're in game intensity. So I went to a small town in Indiana, and we took a high school gym there, and we got some of the best athletes in collegiate basketball, and a couple from the pro game who were young enough to appear as college players. And we staged three actual basketball games, and I shot them with 9 cameras and had Nick Nolte actually coaching his team. He had been trained to such an extent that he could go out and actually coach a basketball team, which he did.
Follow me until I get the ball. The tempo is ours. Go strong, Rick. We got killed. Look it up. Nigel, goddammit, get over on his left foot. Oh! What if Lee Jones could have made a better call, for Christ's sake? Call him out of the box! You're standing over and you know he didn't touch him. God damn it! Yeah, but you didn't even see that.
Some of the films I've made, I go for a kind of poetic realism, sometimes a surrealism. In The Exorcist, there's a bit of surrealism, also a touch of it in French Connection. But in Blue Chips, I wanted absolute total realism because I felt the game of basketball was exciting enough to support that approach.
In 1995, Friedkin filmed Jade from an original screenplay by Joe Esterhaus and starring David Caruso, Linda Fiorentino, Chazz Palminteri, and Richard Crenna.
Jade is a marvelous script by Joe Esterhaus. It's an original screenplay, not based on anything else. It's a murder mystery, and it's a 3-character story, basically. It's about two men who went to Stanford Law School together, both idealistic, and a woman that they were both in love with. And the woman becomes a clinical psychologist. One of the young men becomes the district attorney of San Francisco, and the other becomes a very prominent criminal and corporate lawyer. And in the course of the story, a murder takes place that implicates the woman. And so in the course of the film, it appears as though the district attorney who is investigating the case may have to bring charges against this woman that he loves, who is married to this criminal attorney who may have to defend her. Now, the film never gets involved with a trial, and it never answers all of its questions, but that's what I like about it. That sort of film has kind of gone out of vogue. Today, most of the films that are made provide easy answers to easy questions. But the films that I most love and respect are those films that raise questions and leave the answers with the audience, so that when the audience leaves the theater, they have something to take with them. They have questions, and the questions are not fully resolved. I mean, that, to me, is the greatness of Citizen Kane. It's like a chain reaction. Every day for the last 30 years or so that I've seen that film, I can think about it and discover new things about it. It doesn't give up all of its answers easily. And that's the attempt with Jade as well. But it's I think, a very powerful thriller and I'm getting 3 really great performances. Linda Fiorentino, who won the New York Film Critics Award and various international critics awards last year, is the lead, along with David Caruso and Chazz Palminteri.
What he has done that another director might not do is to find a reality in a situation or a story where one might find a pseudo-reality or alienate the audience. And I think Billy finds a way to bring the audience in by making it real.
Ever give Medford a silver jewelry box?
No, I never gave him any gift.
And you never had a sexual relationship with him?
What the hell kind of question is that, David?
That's why they're here, Matt.
You don't have to answer that.
I said I had no social contact with him. I do consider sex to be a social contact, David. As you know, I'm married.
One of the hardest things for me at this point is trying to figure out what to do next, because I've gotten to do so much in Jade.
I never think about my career. I really don't. I mean, when people ask me about it, I stop and think about it. And if I had to make a comment about it, I'd say that as of yet, I haven't fulfilled early promise. I've still fallen far short of Citizen Kane, and that's what keeps me going. Really, directing film is a young man's game. And you have to have a lot of energy, and you gotta be able to let nothing stop you, and you've got to believe that the world is your oyster, and in other words, have a great deal of self-confidence to go with your energy. That's why it's a young man's game. But frankly, I mean, I stay with it and keep at it, not only because I love the work, but because I was inspired to do a film as good as Citizen Kane, and I'm going to keep trying until I get it right.